The conference room fell silent as I clicked to the next slide of my presentation. 300 of the nation's top pediatric specialists stared at the screen, at the revolutionary surgical technique I'd pioneered for treating congenital heart defects in infants. I was 32 years old, the youngest chief of pediatric surgery at Massachusetts General Hospital, and I was about to change the field forever. That's when I saw them. My mother stood frozen in the doorway, her face drained of color. Beside her, my sister Emma clutched a manila folder to her chest, her mouth hanging open. They'd somehow gotten past security, interrupted the most important presentation of my career, and now they stood there gaping at me like I was a ghost. Dr. Chen, the conference moderator said, confused by my sudden pause. Is everything all right? I smiled, cold and clinical. Everything's perfect. Just some uninvited guests. I gestured to security. Please escort those women out. They're not registered attendees. Sarah, my mother's voice cracked across the room. Sarah, please, it's Emma's son. He needs you. The irony was so perfect, it almost made me laugh. Almost. I don't know anyone named Sarah, I said calmly. Security? As they dragged my screaming mother and sobbing sister from the room, I turned back to my presentation. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. Because I'd been preparing for this moment for 12 years, since the day I died at age 23, worked to death as an unpaid nanny for my sister's 3 children, and woke up in my 11-year-old body with every memory of that wasted life burned into my brain. This time, I'd chosen myself. The memories of my first life hit me the morning of my 11th birthday, slamming into my consciousness like a freight train. I woke up gasping, tears streaming down my face, my heart racing with the phantom pain of the massive stroke that had killed me 12 years in the future, or the past, or whatever temporal nightmare I was living in. I remembered everything, every humiliating, soul-crushing moment. It had started when I was 14, when Emma got pregnant the first time. She was 19, unmarried, and our parents' golden child, beautiful, popular Emma who could do no wrong. When she came home with a positive pregnancy test, my mother didn't scream or cry. She just turned to me. Sarah will help, she'd said as if it was already decided. She's good with children. I wasn't good with children. I was 14 and wanted to study medicine, to become a doctor like the ones I'd watched save my grandmother's life. But that didn't matter to them. Emma had Tyler when she was 20. I was 15, starting high school, dreaming of AP classes and science fairs and college. Instead, I became a mother to my nephew, while Emma went out partying, finding herself. My mother worked full-time and made it clear that babysitting was my responsibility. My father, when he bothered, to be home, just nodded along with whatever Mom said. Family helps family, became their mantra. This is temporary, they promised. Emma just needs time to adjust. The temporary arrangement lasted 8 years. Emma had Madison at 22. I was 17, supposed to be preparing for college applications. Instead, I was juggling 2 children under 2, changing diapers, preparing bottles, singing lullabies at 2 in the morning while Emma slept off another hangover. I tried to talk to my mother about it, about needing time for my studies, for my future. Your sister needs you, she'd said, not even looking up from her phone. Family comes first. You can go to community college part-time. But I couldn't. Because at 19, Emma had her 3rd child, Cooper. And suddenly, I had 3 children to raise while my sister lived her life like she was still a carefree teenager. I'd tried to leave once when I was 20, packed my bags, enrolled in a nursing program at a state school 3 hours away, ready to start over. I made it to the bus station before my mother's call came through. Emma's in the hospital, she'd said, her voice flat. Overdose, pills and alcohol, the kids are at the house with your father, but you know he can't handle them. Sarah, you need to come back. She needs you. They need you. And like a fool, I'd gone back. Emma went to rehab, a luxury facility that my parents somehow scraped together money for, money they'd never had when I'd asked for help with even community college tuition. She came back transformed, full of apologies and promises to be a better mother. It lasted 3 weeks before she met Derek. Derek was 45, divorced, wealthy, and utterly charmed by Emma. He wined and dined her, took her on trips, bought her designer clothes. And while Emma played at being Cinderella, I continued to raise her children. Now I was 21, had never been to college, had no prospects, no future. Just an endless cycle of school lunches and homework help and bedtime stories for children who called me Aunt Sarah, but looked at me like a second mother. The worst part? Everyone thought I was lucky. At least you have a purpose, my mother said when I'd tried, one last time, to talk about my dreams. At least you're needed. Some people never find that. My father was more blunt. You're not smart enough for medical school anyway, Sarah. Be realistic. This is what you're good at. At 23, I was changing Cooper's diaper when the headache started. A blinding, crushing pain that made me stumble. I remember thinking I needed to finish, needed to get Cooper clean and safe before I dealt with whatever this was. Always putting others first, even as blood vessels burst in my brain. They found me collapsed on the nursery floor 6 hours later. Tyler, now 9, was the one who called 911, terrified and crying. I died in the ambulance. My last thought, a bitter realization that I'd never lived a single day for myself. And then I woke up at 11 years old in my childhood bedroom with a second chance I'd never dared to dream of. The first thing I did was cry. I cried for hours, mourning the life I'd lost, the dreams I'd sacrificed, the version of myself who'd died believing she was worthless. Then I got angry. Then I got calculating. I had every memory of the next 12 years. I knew every mistake Emma would make, every manipulation my parents would use, every moment they'd try to trap me. More importantly, I knew what I was capable of. In my first life, I'd basically raised 3 children from infancy to elementary school while managing a household. I'd learned to cook, to budget, to multitask, to solve problems. I'd been smart enough to help Tyler with his advanced math homework, patient enough to get Madison through her dyslexia struggles, creative enough to keep Cooper engaged despite his ADHD. I'd been capable of so much more than they'd ever let me believe. This time, I would be unstoppable. The timeline gave me an advantage. Emma wouldn't get pregnant for another 3 years. I had time to build a foundation they couldn't undermine, so I made a plan. First, I became an exceptional student. Not just good, exceptional. I'd already been through middle school and high school once. The second time, it was almost laughably easy. I aced every test, joined academic competitions, racked up awards. When my parents barely acknowledged my straight A's, I didn't let it hurt me. I just worked harder. Second, I started documenting everything. I kept journals, saved emails, recorded conversations. I'd looked up the one-party consent laws for our state. I built a paper trail of my parents' favoritism, their expectations, their casual cruelty. I was 11, then 12, then 13, and I was preparing for war. Third, I reached out to people from my first life who'd been kind to me, my high school biology teacher, Mr. Harrison, who'd once told me I had real potential. My grandmother's doctor, Dr. Park, who'd answered my endless questions about medicine with patience and encouragement. I cultivated these relationships, let them see my potential, positioned myself for the opportunities I'd need. When Emma came home pregnant at 19, right on schedule, I was ready. Sarah will help with the baby, my mother said, exactly like before. No, I said simply, I won't. The shock on her face would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. Excuse me? I said no, I'm 14. I have school, extracurriculars, and a future to plan for. Emma made her choice. She can face the consequences. My mother's face turned purple. That's your niece or nephew. Family helps family. Then you help her, Mom. You're the parent. Emma is your daughter. Your responsibility. I'm also your daughter, and I have my own life to live. The screaming match that followed was legendary. My mother called me selfish, ungrateful, cruel. My father backed her up, told me I was being ridiculous, that babysitting a few hours a week wouldn't kill me. Emma, 6 months pregnant and sobbing on the couch, played the victim beautifully. But I held firm. And when they tried to force the issue, I had Mr. Harrison and Dr. Park on speed dial. I'd been carefully building relationships with mandated reporters, and I documented every attempt to push parental responsibilities onto a minor. One call to CPS, I made clear, and this all becomes very official. My parents backed off. Barely. But they backed off. Emma had Tyler and struggled through those first months alone. My mother helped when she could, resentful and exhausted. My father ignored the situation entirely, and I focused on my studies, on my competitions, on building the escape velocity I needed. At 15, I won a full scholarship to a prestigious summer program for aspiring medical students. At 16, I was first in my class, captain of the academic decathlon team, and had already been contacted by recruiters from top universities. At 17, I had full ride offers from 3 Ivy League schools. I chose Harvard, pre-med, as far from home as I could get while staying on the East Coast. My mother didn't even come to my graduation. Medical school was hard, but it was a hardness I'd chosen. Every late night studying, every brutal exam, every moment of exhaustion was mine. I owned it, and I excelled. I'd chosen pediatrics for 2 reasons. First, because I genuinely loved it. All those years with Tyler, Madison, and Cooper had taught me how to connect with children, how to see past their fear and pain to the frightened little souls beneath. Second, because it was the ultimate reclamation of what they'd stolen from me. They'd forced me to be a caretaker. I'd chosen to be a healer. During my residency, I pioneered new techniques for minimally invasive pediatric cardiac surgery. I published papers, I won awards, I made connections with the best minds in the field. And every step of the way, I thought about that day I'd die on Emma's nursery floor, unmourned and unmissed. Never again. I was 28 when I became an attending physician at Mass General, 29 when I performed my first solo surgery on a newborn with hypoplastic left heart syndrome, a condition that would have been fatal a generation ago. I saved that baby's life, and her parents cried and called me an angel, and I felt something in my chest finally start to heal. At 30, I became chief of pediatric surgery, the youngest in the hospital's history. I hadn't spoken to my family in over 12 years. I'd blocked their numbers after college, moved apartments without forwarding addresses, built a life so completely separate from them that they might as well have not existed. I knew from occasional curiosity-driven internet searches that Emma had eventually married Derek and had 2 more children, that my parents had sold their house and downsized, that Tyler, Madison, and Cooper were teenagers now, being raised by a mother who'd finally been forced to grow up, at least partially. I didn't care. They were strangers who happened to share my DNA. Or at least that's what I told myself until that day at the medical conference, when my past crashed into my present and I realized that karma had a beautiful sense of irony. After security removed them, I finished my presentation to thunderous applause. But I couldn't focus on the accolades, the handshakes, the offers for collaborative research. My mind was racing, fitting pieces together. Emma's son needed me. Which son? Tyler would be 21 now, Madison, 19, Cooper, 17. Or did she mean one of the 2 children she'd had with Derek? What could possibly be wrong that they'd track me down at a medical conference? And how dare they? How dare they show up after 12 years of silence, expecting anything from me? I cornered the security guard who'd escorted them out. Where did they go? The parking garage, Dr. Chen. They were persistent, kept saying it was an emergency. I should have let them leave. Should have gone to the celebration dinner, accepted the congratulations, basked in my triumph. But there was a part of me, the part that had once loved those children despite everything, that needed to know. I found them by their car. Emma was sitting in the driver's seat, sobbing. My mother stood outside, looking older and grayer than I remembered, her face haggard. "Sarah," she breathed when she saw me. "Thank God, please, you have to help." "I don't have to do anything," I cut her off. "You have 30 seconds to tell me what you want, and then I'm calling security again." Emma stumbled out of the car, mascara running down her face. "It's Cooper. He has a tumor on his heart. The doctors here in Boston said they can't operate. It's too risky, too complicated. They said there's only one surgeon in the country who might be able to do it." She laughed, bitter and broken. "They said her name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I didn't even realize it was you until I saw your photo on the conference website." The world tilted slightly. Cooper, the little boy I'd potty trained, who'd called me Sawa before he could pronounce Sarah properly, who'd loved dinosaurs and hated green beans. 17 years old now, with a tumor on his heart. "When did they diagnose it?" I asked, my voice clinical. 3 weeks ago. He collapsed during football practice. They did scans and found it. It's wrapped around his coronary artery. They said trying to remove it could kill him, but leaving it will definitely kill him within 6 months. I pulled out my phone. Send me his medical records. All of them. I'll review them. Does that mean It means I'll look at his case, nothing more. Emma's hope was almost painful to watch. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know we don't deserve. You don't, I said flatly. Send the records to my office. You'll hear from me in 48 hours. I turned to walk away, seeing Sarah. My mother's voice stopped me. I know things were hard. But we're family, please. I looked back at her, this woman who'd valued one daughter's freedom over the other's future, who'd watched me sacrifice everything and called it love. You know what I learned in medical school? I said quietly. The heart is just a muscle. It pumps blood. It keeps us alive. But it doesn't make us good, and it doesn't make us family. Actions do that. Choices do that. And you chose wrong every single time. I left them standing there and went back to my hotel room. I ordered room service, poured a glass of wine, and opened my laptop. Then I read Cooper's medical records and I started to plan. The tumor was bad, worse than Emma had described. A rare cardiac fibroma that had grown around Cooper's left coronary artery like a vine strangling a tree. The scans showed it was roughly 4 centimeters, positioned in the worst possible location. Any attempt to remove it risked damaging the artery, which would mean immediate cardiac arrest, but I'd seen worse. I'd operated on cases that other surgeons called impossible. I'd developed techniques specifically for this type of delicate, high-risk surgery. I could save him. I knew I could. The question was, should I? I spent that night wrestling with my conscience. Part of me, the angry, wounded part that remembered dying on Emma's floor, wanted to refuse. To let them feel the helplessness I'd felt, the desperation, the crushing weight of needing help that would never come. But there was another part of me, the part that had become a doctor for the right reasons, that couldn't punish a 17-year-old boy for his family's sins. I made my decision, but I did it on my terms. I called my lawyer first, then I called Emma. I'll do the surgery, I said when she answered, breathless with hope. But there are conditions. Anything, please, anything. First, the hospital social worker will be involved. Cooper is a minor, and I want a full evaluation of his home situation before I proceed. If there are any signs of neglect or abuse, I'll report it. There isn't. We love him, Sarah. We've always... Second, I continued, cutting her off, you and Mom will sit down with me and a mediator. You will listen to everything I have to say about what you did to me. You will not interrupt. You will not defend yourselves. You will not make excuses. You will listen. And then you will write me a letter, both of you, acknowledging specifically what you did wrong and how it affected me. Silence. Then, that's it. Third, my surgical fee is $250,000, paid in advance. Emma gasped. Sarah, we don't have that kind of money. Then figure it out. Sell something, take out a loan, ask Derek's family for help. I don't care. But I won't operate until the fee is paid in full to the hospital's accounts, a department. This is extortion. No, I said calmly. This is me charging my standard fee for a complex, high-risk surgery that will take approximately 8 to 12 hours and require a specialized surgical team that I will personally assemble. You could take Cooper to any other surgeon willing to attempt this procedure. Oh wait, there aren't any, so really you're getting a bargain. 48 hours, Emma, those are my terms. I hung up before she could argue. Then I called the social worker I'd already contacted, gave her the details, and set the wheels in motion. They paid? Of course they paid. Derek had money. Not the kind of money where $250,000 was pocket change, but enough that they could pull it together with some scrambling. Emma called me back 36 hours later, her voice hollow. The money's been transferred. Good. Surgery is scheduled for next week. Cooper will be admitted Wednesday for pre-op. The social worker will want to speak with him privately. Sarah, please, about the other conditions? Non-negotiable. The mediator's office will contact you to schedule our session. Be there, or I cancel the surgery and refund your money. You'd really. Yes, I really would. The truth was, I wouldn't. I wouldn't let Cooper die to punish them. But they didn't need to know that. Let them sweat. Let them feel for once what it was like to be powerless. The mediation session was scheduled for 2 days before the surgery. I arrived at the neutral office downtown with my therapist, Dr. Reeves, who'd been helping me process my complicated feelings about this entire situation. Emma and my mother came together, looking like they were walking to their execution. The mediator, a calm woman named Patricia, explained the ground rules. I would speak for up to an hour. They would listen without interrupting. Afterwards, they could ask questions or respond, but I was under no obligation to engage further. I'm ready, I said. And then I told them everything. I told them about the dreams I'd had as a child, about wanting to save lives like the doctors who'd helped Grandma, about how excited I'd been for high school, for learning, for becoming someone. I told them about the first time Emma came home pregnant, about how Mom had just assumed I'd sacrifice my life for my sister's mistake, about the slow erosion of my identity as I became nothing more than an unpaid nanny. I told them about missing prom because Tyler had chickenpox, about declining a date with the only boy who'd ever asked me out because I had to watch Madison, about crying myself to sleep at night because I was so tired, so alone, so forgotten. I told them about the college acceptance letters I'd hidden in my drawer because I knew I'd never be allowed to go, about the nursing program I'd enrolled in, the escape I'd planned, and how they'd manipulated me into coming back. I told them about dying at 23, worked to death and unmourned. My mother's face crumpled. Emma was shaking, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know, Emma whispered. I didn't know it was that bad. I thought you wanted to help. Mom said you were happy to do it. I turned to my mother. Did you really believe that? Did you really think your 14-year-old daughter was happy to give up her entire life? My mother's voice was barely audible. I thought family was supposed to sacrifice for each other. My mother did it for me. I did it for Emma. I thought that's just what women did. You had a choice, I said, my voice hard. You could have helped Emma learn to be a mother. You could have insisted she face the consequences of her decisions. You could have protected me, your other daughter, instead of feeding me to the wolves to make your own life easier. But you chose wrong. Every single time you chose wrong. We sat in silence for a long moment. The letters, Patricia prompted gently. Dr. Chen requested written acknowledgments. Emma nodded, pulling out a folded piece of paper with shaking hands. I wrote it. I don't know if it's enough, but I tried. I took it, read it. It was 3 pages, handwritten, detailing every instance she could remember of pushing her responsibilities onto me. It acknowledged her selfishness, her immaturity, her failure as both a sister and a mother. At the end, she wrote, I stole your life to make mine easier, and I will never forgive myself. You owe me nothing. You never did. My mother's letter was shorter, but no less painful. She acknowledged forcing me into a parental role, ignoring my needs, and prioritizing Emma's comfort over my future. She wrote, I failed you as a mother. I let you down in every way that mattered. I'm sorry will never be enough, but I'm sorry anyway. I folded both letters carefully and put them in my bag. Okay, I said. We're done here. Sarah, wait. Emma reached for my hand. Is there any chance we can fix this? Rebuild some kind of relationship? I looked at her, this woman who'd been my sister and my greatest burden, and felt nothing but tired distance. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday, but not now. Right out now, I need you to leave me alone. After the surgery, after Cooper recovers, I need you to respect my boundaries and give me space. Can you do that? They both nodded, desperate and grateful. Then we have an understanding. Cooper's surgery was scheduled for Thursday morning at 7 a.m. I met him for the first time in 12 years on Wednesday evening, during his pre-op assessment. He was tall, almost 6 feet, with Emma's blonde hair and Derek's strong jaw. But he had my eyes, the same dark brown, the same slight upturn at the corners. It was disconcerting. Dr. Chen, he said nervously, they said you're the best, that you can fix this. I'm very good at what I do, I said, reviewing his latest scans on the tablets. but I need you to understand the risks. This is a complicated surgery. There's a chance of stroke, heart attack, or death on the table. There's a chance I'll have to make decisions in the moment that could affect your long-term cardiac function. I will do everything in my power to save your life and give you the best outcome possible, but I need you to understand that there are no guarantees. He nodded, trying to look brave. Mom said, she said you're my aunt, that you guys don't really talk. That's correct. She's been crying a lot. She and Grandma both. They said they did something really bad to you when you were younger. I glanced up from the tablet. Did the social worker talk to you? Yeah, she asked if I felt safe at home, if anyone hurt me. I told her no. I mean, Mom and Derek aren't perfect, but they're not like... They love us, all of us. He hesitated. Tyler and Maddie told me about you, about how you used to take care of them when they were little. Tyler said you were like a second mom, that you were the one who got him through stuff when Mom was, not around. My chest tightened. Tyler remembers that? Yeah, he's in college now studying education. He said he wants to be a teacher because of you, because you used to help him with homework even when he was being a brat. Cooper smiled weakly. He also said to tell you he's sorry, that if he'd known what it cost you, he would have, I don't know, been better somehow. I had to look away, blinking hard. Tell him he was a child. He has nothing to apologize for. Will you tell him yourself, after the surgery maybe? We'll see. Right now, let's focus on getting you through tomorrow. I walked him through the procedure, showing him diagrams of the heart, explaining exactly what I'd be doing. He listened intently, asking smart questions. He was scared. I could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the bed rail, but he was trying to be strong. Dr. Chen, he said as I was leaving, thank you for doing this, even though, I know we're not really family to you anymore. So, thank you. I paused at the door. You are family, Cooper. You're just not my responsibility. There's a difference. The surgery began at 7 a.m. sharp. I had my best team. Dr. Raman on anesthesia, Dr. Okonkwo assisting me, 2 specialized cardiac nurses, and a perfusionist standing by in case we needed to put Cooper on bypass. Scalpel at a sunnet, I said and felt the familiar weight of the instrument in my hand. 8 hours. That's how long it took to carefully dissect the tumor away from Cooper's coronary artery, millimeter by painstaking millimeter. The thing was massive up close, wrapped around the vessel like it was trying to choke the life out of him. One wrong move and he'd bleed out on the table. I didn't make any wrong moves. At 3:47 p.m. Asun, I placed the last suture and stepped back, nodding to Dr. Okonkwo. Close him up, I'll go talk to the family. I found them in the surgical waitings area, a miserable-looking group huddled in the corner. Emma and Derek, my mother, Tyler and Madison, both of whom I barely recognized, and Emma's 2 younger children. The surgery was successful, I said without preamble. The tumor has been completely removed. The coronary artery is intact. He'll need to stay in the ICU for monitoring, but barring complications, I expect a full recovery. Emma collapsed into Derek's arms, sobbing with relief. My mother covered her face with her hands. Tyler, grown up now with a beard and glasses, looked at me with tears streaming down his face. Thank you, he said, and Dr. Chen, thank you so much. You're welcome. I turned to leave. Sarah, wait. Emma caught up to me in the hallway. Can I see him? Not yet. He's in recovery. Give it a few hours. Right, of course. She twisted her hands together. I meant what I wrote in that letter, all of it. I know I can't fix what I did, but I want you to know, Emma. I cut her off gently. I'm glad Cooper is going to be okay. I'm glad I could help him, but that doesn't change what happened between us. I need you to accept that. I do. I am. I want you to know that I see you now, what you've become, what you've accomplished. You're incredible, Sarah. You're everything I could never be. I studied her face, looking for manipulation or deflection, but all I saw was genuine remorse and strangely pride. Take care of your kids, Emma, I said finally. All of them. Be the mother they deserve. That's all I've ever wanted from you. Cooper recovered beautifully. Within a week, he was out of the ICU. Within 2 weeks, he was doing cardiac rehab. Within a month, he was back home with strict activity restrictions but an excellent prognosis. I followed his case closely, as I did with all my patients, but I kept my professional distance from the family. They respected my boundaries mostly. Emma sent occasional updates via my office email, nothing personal, just medical information I needed to monitor Cooper's recovery. 3 months after the surgery, I received an unexpected package at my office. Inside was a thick scrapbook, carefully assembled, filled with photos I'd never seen before. There were pictures of me with Tyler as a baby, both of us covered in what looked like pureed carrots, me laughing at the camera. Pictures of me teaching Madison to ride a bike, my hand steadying the seat. Pictures of Cooper and me building a blanket fort, his face lit up with joy. Someone, probably Emma, had gone through old photos and compiled every image of me with the kids, moments I'd forgotten or never known were captured. On the last page was a photo I definitely didn't remember. Me at 19, asleep on the couch with all 3 kids piled on top of me like puppies, my face exhausted but peaceful. Underneath in Tyler's handwriting was a note. You gave us your life. We didn't understand then. We're so sorry. Thank you for saving Cooper and for giving us the childhood we didn't deserve. Love, Tyler, Madison, and Cooper. I sat in my office holding that scrapbook and cried. Not the bitter, angry tears of my first life, but something softer. Something like grief for what could have been, mixed with pride for what I'd become despite it all. 6 months after Cooper's surgery, I was invited to speak at a medical ethics conference about pediatric consent and family dynamics in surgical decision-making. During my presentation, I talked about Cooper's case, anonymized, of course, and the complicated intersection of family obligation and professional duty. As physicians, we take an oath to do no harm, I told the audience. But what does that mean when the patient is entangled in a web of family dysfunction? When saving their life means engaging with people who have harmed us? I struggled with this case more than any other in my career, not because of the technical difficulty, but because of the emotional complexity. I clicked to my next slide. In the end, I realized that my patient was not his family's sins. He was a 17-year-old boy with a tumor on his heart who deserved every chance at life, regardless of who his mother was or what she'd done to me. Separating the patient from their context is sometimes the most ethical thing we can do. The applause was warm but thoughtful. During the Q&A, a young resident asked, "How did you maintain professional boundaries when the personal stakes were so high?" "I didn't," I admitted. "Not entirely. I set conditions for the surgery that were partially about ensuring my patient's well-being and partially about reclaiming my own power in a relationship where I'd always been powerless. Was it perfectly ethical? Probably not, but it was human. And sometimes being human is the best we can do." After the conference, Dr. Park, my grandmother's doctor from years ago, now a mentor and friend, pulled me aside. "That took courage," he said, sharing that story. "Someone needs to talk about this stuff," I said. About the messy reality of medicine when you're not just treating bodies but navigating broken relationships and old wounds. It's not always clean and heroic. "No," he agreed. "But you saved that boy's life. That's heroic enough." A year after Cooper's surgery, I received an invitation to his high school graduation. I almost didn't go, but something, curiosity, closure, or maybe just the desire to see him healthy and thriving, made me change my mind. I sat in the back of the auditorium, anonymous among hundreds of other attendees. When Cooper walked across the stage to receive his diploma, I felt a surge of something I couldn't quite name. Pride, maybe. Relief. Hope. After the ceremony, I slipped out before the family could spot me, but as I was getting into my car, I heard someone call my name. "Dr. Chen, wait!" Tyler jogged up to me, cap and gown-clad Madison close behind. They'd both graduated college recently, Tyler with his teaching degree, Madison with hers in special education. "You came," Tyler said, slightly out of breath. "Cooper will be so happy." "I just wanted to see him walk," I said. "Make sure he's okay." "He's more than okay. He made varsity football next year. Well, he's going to college for engineering, but he got a walk-on spot. The doctor said his heart function is perfect." Madison smiled. "Because of you, I'm glad." We stood there awkwardly for a moment. "I'm teaching high school math now," Tyler offered. "Just finished my first year. It's hard, but amazing." "And I'm working with kids with learning disabilities," Madison added. "Helping them the way you helped me." My throat felt tight. "That's wonderful, both of you." "We wanted to thank you," Tyler said seriously. "Not just for Cooper, for everything. We've been talking to a therapist, all of us, even Mom and Grandma, about what happened, about what they put you through, and we understand now how messed up it was." "You were children," I said firmly. "None of it was your fault." "Maybe not," Madison said. "But we benefited from it. We had someone who loved us and cared for us because you were forced to sacrifice yourself. That's not nothing." "What do you want me to say?" Tyler looked me in the eye. "We want to know if there's any way we can be in your life, not as obligations or burdens, as people who care about you and want to know you, the real you, not just the version who took care of us." I considered it. These weren't the toddlers I'd raised anymore. They were adults, thoughtful and self-aware, dealing with their own complicated feelings about our shared history. "Maybe," I said slowly. "Start small, coffee, occasionally. Let's see how it goes." The relief on their faces was palpable. "We'd like that," Madison said. "A lot." 2 years after Cooper's surgery, I published a landmark paper on pediatric cardiac tumor resection that became the gold standard in the field. I was offered a position as director of pediatric surgery at Johns Hopkins, a promotion that would make me one of the youngest department heads in the country. I accepted. The day I signed the contract, I called my parents' house. My mother answered, her voice tentative. "Sarah?" "Hi, Mom. I'm calling to let you know I'm moving to Baltimore. New job. I wanted to tell you before you heard it from someone else." "Oh, that's wonderful, honey. Congratulations." "Thanks." I paused. "I also wanted to tell you that I've been having coffee with Tyler and Madison occasionally, and Cooper calls me sometimes to ask about pre-med stuff. He's thinking about becoming a doctor. He told me he's very excited about it. You're his hero." Her voice cracked slightly. "You're all of their heroes." "Mom, I'm not calling to rehash everything. I just wanted to say that I'm doing well. Really well, and I'm happy." "I'm glad. You deserve that." "I know I do," I said simply. "I deserve everything I've built." There was a long pause. Then, "Yes, you do." We talked for a few more minutes, superficial but not hostile. When I hung up, I felt something release in my chest. Not forgiveness, exactly, but maybe the beginning of peace. 5 years after Cooper's surgery, I stood in my new office at Johns Hopkins, looking out over Baltimore. I was 37 years old, one of the most respected pediatric surgeons in the country, with a team of brilliant residents under my mentorship and a research lab developing new surgical techniques. My life was full. I had colleagues who respected me, patients who trusted me, a beautiful apartment in a historic neighborhood, and enough money that I'd never have to worry about security again. I'd recently started dating someone, a fellow surgeon who made me laugh and never made me feel like I needed to be anything other than myself. I kept the scrapbook Tyler had sent me in my office bookshelf. Sometimes I'd look through it at those pictures of a girl who'd given everything and gotten nothing in return, and I'd feel grateful. Not for what they'd done to me, but for what it had taught me about my own strength. I'd chosen myself, chosen my dreams, my career, my happiness, and in doing so, I'd become someone who could save lives, including the life of the boy who'd once called me Sahwa and loved dinosaurs. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd forced me to be a caretaker, and I'd transformed that into something powerful and purposeful on my own terms. They'd tried to trap me in a cage of obligation, and I'd built wings from the bars. My phone buzzed. A text from Cooper, now a sophomore pre-med student. Got an A on my anatomy exam, called the right coronary artery the Dr. Sarah Chen artery on the essay question. Professor was not amused, but I was. Thanks for the study guide. I smiled and texted back. Proud of you, and it's just called the right coronary artery. Don't rename anatomy. Another text came through, this time from Tyler. Dinner next month when you're in town, Madison and I want to hear about your latest case. Sure, I wrote back, but I'm picking the restaurant this time. Your taste in sushi is questionable. These relationships weren't what I'd lost in my first life. They were something new, built on choice and mutual respect rather than obligation and sacrifice. It wasn't perfect, and sometimes the old resentments flared up, but it was real and it was mine. 10 years after Cooper's surgery, I received the most prestigious award in pediatric surgery, the Lasker Award for Clinical Medical Research, recognizing my contributions to the field of pediatric cardiothoracic surgery. The ceremony was in New York, black tie, attended by the most brilliant medical minds in the world. I brought my partner, David, as my date. I also, after some consideration, invited Tyler, Madison, and Cooper. Not my mother or Emma, I still had boundaries, but the kids who'd grown into adults actually enjoyed knowing. When I took the stage to accept my award, I looked out at the audience and saw them in the third row, beaming with pride. Next to them sat Dr. Park and Mr. Harrison, my early champions who'd believed in me when no one else did. My acceptance speech was brief. I talked about the importance of advocating for yourself, of refusing to let others define your worth, of building a life that reflects your values rather than others' expectations. I became a doctor because I was told I wasn't smart enough to be one, I said. I specialized in pediatric surgery because I was forced to care for children and decided to transform that experience into something I chose. And I've saved hundreds of lives because I saved my own first, by deciding that my dreams mattered as much as anyone else's needs. The standing ovation lasted 3 full minutes. At the reception afterward, Cooper cornered me by the champagne fountain. I'm applying for residency next year, he said. Pediatric cardiology, following in your footsteps. That's wonderful. You'll be excellent at it. I wanted to ask if you'd write me a recommendation letter. I know it's a lot to ask, given everything's at Cooper. I stopped him. I'd be honored to write your letter. Send me your CV and personal statement. His relief was visible. Thank you for everything, for then, for now, for all of it. I studied him, this young man who'd been a toddler in my first life, who I'd loved despite everything, who'd almost died and given me the strangest second chance at a relationship with my family. You know what I realized? I said. In my first life, I died at 23 because I gave everything to people who took and never gave back. In this life, I'm 42 and I've given more love, more care, more expertise than I ever did before. The difference is that this time, I chose who to give it to and how much to give. That choice made all the difference. Cooper nodded thoughtfully. I get that, and for what it's worth, I'm grateful you chose to give me a second chance. At life, and at knowing you. You deserved both. They made me babysit her kids for years, stole my youth and my dreams, worked me to death in a life I never asked for. After Rebirth, they found out I'd become a pediatric surgeon, the best in the country, the one who saved their child's life on my terms, who built an empire from the ashes of the girl they'd tried to bury. I saved Cooper because that's what doctors do. But I saved myself first, and that's what mattered. They wanted a sacrifice. I gave them a phoenix. And I've never looked back.